YouTube, we're back with the aerocommander UMX, doing some scale details. This is part 2 of the video series. Where we left off, we were just getting some coats of paint on these little pieces that we're going to be adding, and so we're going to continue where we left off. I don't know if anybody else does this. I have to assume many other of you do this exact very thing. And with UMX planes in particular, where they don't come with a lot of scale details, I really enjoy this process. I do not enjoy the process of putting LEDs and flaps on planes. I expect those to come from the manufacturer where possible. But I do enjoy putting these little scale details on because it's just the fun stuff, you know. Okay, so this stuff may have had a chance to dry, so let's go ahead and try to peel this off. Okay, so we got a decent line. Okay, it's not perfect, but it could be worse too. Ooh, that line was really good. One thing I can say about that is that the middle line might need to be a little bit thicker and a little bit more square. So I think for now I'm just going to stick those down there and get ready for the next one. You can tell for sure that I did not mask off for the yellow here. And so the deviation in size is pretty evident from one prop blade to the next. Usually not a big deal on a UMX, no doubt. But the closer you can get it to what you want, the better. I was not supposed to use that last piece. I was supposed to keep that as a gauge. That'll be close enough. So really it might not be a bad idea to just get these all masked up at the same time. So I know stick building planes with balsa wood is by far more time consuming than this. And I've had a couple of guys, I had one guy in particular who was very aggressively, he was angry that I called these build videos, and I just don't think he understood the generic nature of build. But I've done stick-built aircraft too. I've got videos of that, of those aircraft I've built from years back. A few of them that survived, I built them when I was a kid, when I was a teenager. But they take a lot of time. I have a lot of respect for the people that can put them together. My grandpa does. And then he has me help him with the electronics and stuff like that. So, you know, I didn't get this one very thin. See how much thicker that is? That's going to look, I mean, it'll look fine, but it's not going to look right. So we'll just trim that away. Okay, very good. That ought to work. So once we're done with the propeller blades here, then we'll probably revisit the antennas. These are the antennas, and then those vents, we'll get those touched up again. I don't know if you guys can tell, but I'm grabbing the tails where they go together and just kind of repositioning them to get them squared up to what I see as reasonably close. Looks like I'm going to need a little bit more of this green stuff. This green stuff works really good. I like it a lot. Just regular masking tape for around the home. Certainly nothing too terribly special about it. I think I got my spacing a lot better on this one. Okay, make sure you get good adhesion, because adhesion is going to be what keeps that paint from sliding up under the adhesive on this tape. Whoops. Always scares me when I have a UMX roll like that. So that one looks like maybe it's not quite so square. Again, these don't need to be perfect, but the more perfect you get them, the better it's gonna look in the end. Very good. So we're finally getting into the crappy weather where I live here in Iowa for the year, and we'll have nice days here and there, but we're going to have more time for the builds and less time for the flying. So what that means is I'll probably end up having quite a few build videos that are going to get presented with a little bit longer gap before flights. And I hate to do that. I don't like making people wait around for the videos, but kind of the nature of the beast when you get into the bad weather. I'll still fly when it's crappy out, guys, but it's just a lot harder to get my camera crew motivated to come film with me. That would be my wife. Okay, great. So now we'll dip back into the paint here, give it a nice little spread around. Grab a little bit of this. Let's get these touched up before we even go upstairs. Go up and do the... Okay. Those ones look pretty good, actually. The only thing I'm nervous about is down at the base where I can't see so good. It's going to be a little harder to get that painted. So I'm going to push down on this just to hold it. Yeah, that worked pretty good, actually. Okay, we'll come back to that. I'm actually going to grab a new Q-tip. They're so expensive after all. So now I'm going to dip into the paint, make sure I get good paint, and go straight onto the surface of this. Okay, so now I can come in here and spread it out like a roller on a wall. I want to have good control over where this gets applied and where it doesn't. Just rolling up, only up, might help a little bit to get the paint to spread. Of course, I got some chunks in there, that's always convenient. So, you want to know how we take care of that? Well, we just cut it off and let it fall on the ground right in the carpet. That's how we do that. Okay, so now we can do the same thing again, expecting different results. Wait, hold on. Isn't that the definition of insanity? Well, I guess you got me. Okay, I need a lot more paint, especially on the yellow. So we're going to cover up the yellow there from the previous paint job. Oh, and by the way, I'm sure there's a few of you screaming at the TV saying, or the computer or whatever it is you're using to watch this, saying, Brian, you're going to make that thing all out of balance. And you know what? There is a possibility that you'll have a balance issue. especially with this imprecise method that I'm using to paint these tips. But you know what? It's a risk I'm willing to take for glamour. Okay, so now we'll just kind of rotate the plane. These planes are always bigger and more obnoxious than you expect they might be. Now the cool thing about this is you really don't need a lot of paint to get the effect. But if you're like me, you'll want it to be dark. And the other cool thing is about this particular plane is that you're not likely to have a prop strike with the way that the props are oriented. So you're probably going to be fairly safe. In terms of not having to go in and touch up the tips. And if you do, you're just touching up that outside tip and not the inside tip necessarily. Now the reason I spread this is because then it evenly coats the roller. And if this cotton starts to undo itself, then I'll have a warning before it's out, stuck to the tip of the propeller. Which has happened to me, like this little straggler there. It's not a huge issue, but you don't want to have like complete saturation with little strings, because those strings are a pain in the butt to get out because they're usually embedded in the paint. Okay, so now that we got that side taken care of, let's flip it around. And you can see a better view of those cuts I made. Just real small cuts. And they'll be filled up with CA and stuff, so it should be no big deal. Okay, I gotta go pick up some paint. You can see it goes pretty quick once you get moving. Of course, if the plane rolls off the edge into the abyss, then you're screwed pretty bad, so don't let that happen. Very good. Okay, so we've got these all painted, so now we're just going to come back over here, just give a quick touch up on these ones, just to make sure we got good coverage, especially on the front's going to be the most critical. And we'll come back down here and just do a quick blast of color over there, just to make sure we're 100% sure. Pick up a little more paint off the paper. Just go back over these. And when I was a kid, I could never paint two coats. I was so impatient. I'm still pretty impatient, but I'm a little bit more patient, slightly more, but still not as much as I should be for my age. But the reason I bring that up is just for the simple fact that if you can just do one coat, it's not going to be very robust. Especially these ones. These ones, when you lay this thing upside down, it's possible that they'll end up touching. So just keep that in mind. Now, I don't know if you guys can tell from the video, but there's a bit of a bump here, and I don't like it. I think it's a chunk of paint must have been in there. So I'm going to scrape out that little chunk. I'm just going to go back to town on that real briefly. Just a couple of quick passes, scrape up some more paint, lob it back down on there. I might even come up in here and get a good thick slather for that one little spot, since we had to take the drip out. And then I had one unfortunate spot where the landing gear needed a touch up. I don't know if you guys can see that red up against the water heater, but I'm going to touch this up real quick. I don't want to take the landing gear off any more times than has to be done to get the job done. Let's see if I can get that in the light a little better. Oh yeah, that touched up decent. Might get a little bit more paint on there. Okay, so that was a lot of paint. Okay, so we'll just go over that one little spot there. Okay, so that'll do it for now. So what we might need to do is we might need to pause and let some of this stuff set up. Or we might not. Not sure yet. I think for now, why don't we set that down, and those are not dry and those are probably not dry. But we could probably go ahead and peel off our masking. Ooh, yeah, that looks good. I like that. Very nice. Very nice. Looks better than the first one. Back's not as dark. Not real crazy about the darkness of the back. But let's just be honest, it's the back. It's probably not the end of the world. One thing I can tell you though is once you get that masking off of there, it's quite difficult to darken it up. So you can use a super small paintbrush if you want, or you can try to do this. It never, see, there you go, it never seems to work. Not the way I did it with the rest of it. So I'll take this sharp edge here and just pick up that one little drip. I'm going to go for a Q-tip on this. Just a brand new Q-tip. Never fails. So just wipe it. Go up and wipe. Okay, so I'm just going to leave it for now. We'll have to come back with some thinner, so I'm not tempted to use it. And then I'll take this painty one. It's got lots of paint on it, and I might go and touch up the third one a bit more on the back. Just for good measure. Because it's frustrating to go through all this work and then have it look not quite right. That's not very cool. Yeah, that's a lot better. A lot better color coverage. The fronts were good. I didn't think we had any issues on the fronts. And although they are good, I might as well just go ahead and, like I said, it's very difficult to get the masking to align properly if you have to redo this or touch it up again. Alright guys, so now we just need to let some stuff dry. Let's take a look at the list while we're waiting. We're not going to do the limo antenna, we're just not doing it. Tail boom numbers, we could work at that for a minute. Oh, we got to paint that horizontal stab. Where's that thing? Here it is. We're not going to use this antenna, that weird one. We're just not going to do that. It's just kind of, I don't think it makes the cut. So now this, on the real planes, goes in here. It's positioned about this far down, and it's positioned in about this deep in it. I would have to slice the wing and slide it through, and so I'm just toying with the idea of, do I cut it in half, or do I paint it and then cut it, or how is the best way, or do I cut the plane and then slide it through, or do I notch it and slide it back? I don't think I can notch it. I can't get it far enough back. If I cut it and slide it in, I could notch it down and then slide it through and then slide it back. That might be an option that would work. And this wasn't overly difficult to create, so why don't I try that? Then we can go with the dry fit first, initially. Just noticing this isn't square on the back. Okay, so thickness of this wing, trying to see if that's about the same thickness as this hole punch. It looks like it might be pretty close. So we'll just take this and cut one hole, just like so. Then we'll trim and trim and trim and trim some more. Okay, so you can see that kind of that general shape we've got there. So now what we would be doing is we'd be cutting our hole in the foam, And that's a scary thing to do, so I'm going to just hurry up and do it before I change my mind. You may have noticed I tend to overthink things. Sometimes it's easier to just get it done. Okay, so you see I've got a pretty decent size opening now. Let's just slide that back in there. Looks kind of like one of those bag things that you use to shut the bread bag. Kind of what it reminds me of. Looks like my hole was just very slightly over to one side. Let's see if I can nip over just a touch. Like that. Yeah. Now we'll find out if that's too much or not enough. Looks like we're going to have to probably force it a little bit to get it to slip through. And it's going. Okay. So now that little thing is through. And that looks pretty reasonable. It's not perfect. See if we can get you guys a look. I got two ideas. One idea is very simple. Take and make another piece that would fit tight. Or option two, cut it in half right in the middle and then slide them in and glue them. But then I lose the strength of the one piece. But I think I like it. I think it's going to look right. Now the other thing is I'm going to add a little bit of thickness when I go in and paint that. So why don't we go ahead and... I'm a little nervous that the paint's going to get sort of ripped off a little bit when we do that. But I guess that's just the nature of these high-risk maneuvers that I'm doing here. And this is really slick. I probably should have done it on the other ones too, but I just forgot. So I'm just going to take this little sanding squisher and just rough it up a little bit. Just like that. Okay, so here goes nothing, guys. I'm just going to paint it. And then use this to hold it down. Looks like that paint's getting set up. I probably shouldn't leave this open like that, but kind of going back and forth here. And I would say that in total, all these little details are going to add maybe 1 gram to 2 grams, if that. So we'll let that set and dry. I wonder if we can get these to go in. So the antenna, yeah, I think they're going to go. I think they'll be good. Let's see how it looks. Now we don't have to glue anything yet until we're 100% sure on the placement and whether or not we like it. Oh, that looks sweet. And I got it in at just that slight angle like it would be in the real life. Okay, same thing here. Just kind of knocking off the rough edges. You know, and these are the little things that'll drive you nuts when you go to transport the plane, but oh yes, that is exactly what I had hoped for. Like that. Perfect. Okay, cool. So now I need to paint my bread clip again. Dang it, I got paint on me. Figures. This is what happens when you're painting. This is kind of a bad backdrop for painting a white thing, isn't it? My guess is it's going to show up about not at all on the video. And if you really want to make that not stick, just throw a little bit of wax paper down there. Okay, so let's go ahead and glue these other pieces in. We're going to use the Foam Safe CA black top, medium. We're going to take Kicker and have it available. We're probably not going to actually use Kicker in a spritz manner. We're going to do it different this time, if we do it at all. Okay, so first thing, we're going to fill up that void. About 2 drips worth. Then we're going to take this and very reluctantly scrape the paint with our thumbnail and then our middle finger. Okay. And then we're going to take this Kicker and we're going to make a little puddle of it. Yep, and we're just going to dip in it. And we're just going to stick it in the hole. Just like that, guys. And she's set up. Yes! We got the angle. Okay, so just so you know, if we have to open the top, this comes off, and this comes off. If we have to separate the wing. Be avoiding these areas as much as you can. Okay, so same thing here. I need a knife for this because it's a little bit thicker. I'm going to score it, just like this. I'm going to scrape the paint off, flip it over. I'm going to score it again, and scrape the paint from the score back. And that doesn't need to be perfect, but the more perfect, the better. Maybe 1, 2, 3 drips, 4 drips, maybe. A little bit bigger opening. Since we sprayed this on cardboard, we're ready to recoat that. Now this one I got to be a little bit more Johnny on the spot because I need to hit the angle. Wow, that was like immediately stuck. Oh yeah, that's gorgeous, guys. Now I don't know if that one's supposed to be at an angle. If it's not, I can heat it and bend it. But I kind of like it at an angle. Now I'm just making a seam of glue and just leaving it. Okay, that's going to help hold them in position. And incidentally, that Kicker, it's you want to try to avoid getting that on your paint at all because it will screw up your paint. One big drip. Let it run. One big drip, let it run. Okay. Now leave it. And resist your temptations to play with that, Brian. Because it looks good and you need to stop screwing with it. Okay, I agree, me. Alright, so the next step would be to pull the masking tape off the tips. And I'm trying to think, we might be done with this. I gotta pause it. Okay, aside from touch-up, we should be done with this paint. So I'm gonna go ahead and scrape off that tip, lay it aside, cap it off, and then we'll be ready to rock and roll for the next step. I don't have to worry about that paint drying. Guys, it looks really, really good. Oh, yes. That's going to look so sweet when it's running. I hope we didn't cause it to be imbalanced too bad. Now, that's the one we screwed up on, so no harm, no foul. You're not going to notice it. You certainly won't notice it in flight, but you're not going to notice it on the ground either, I don't think. I'll give you guys a shot of this too, but let's get these pieces of masking tape off. Try your very best to take them off in one piece if you can. It's going to be less likely to rip your paint if you can get them off in one piece. Because if you don't get it off in one piece, you're going to end up screwing up your paint some. Oh no. Alright, now I gotta be careful. So here it is. Oh, we might have got lucky there. Get off of me. Okay, so let's show you the rear of these. Oh yes, that looks gorgeous. That is so cool, guys. Oop, a little bit of tape left. So it's actually paint. Got it off of there. So we've got the antenna. We got the antenna and the props, and we've got, or excuse me, the windshield wipers. Which, incidentally enough, you guys are gonna think I'm nuts, but I really think we need to highlight those a little bit. So I'm gonna wipe some white paint on here, and only on the black. I'm just gonna go down and scrape, just for a glare, so that you can see it. I'm gonna take that same approach on the other side. Remember, we're just trying to make it so it stands out just a little bit more up against the windshield. It's not actually a scale detail per se, but now you can maybe see it just a little bit more.